but medical service is like this. So there was going to come a gap someday in time where there are not going to be enough doctors to treat all those patients. And it just happened with COVID. All the hospital systems in the world got overwhelmed. I mean, there were too much sick people. And not even, and right now I shared in LinkedIn a paper that she's called Rachel she's from a place in London, where we're talking about the backlog of chronic diseases. I mean, all the people that were sick of hypertension, diabetes, cancer, they weren't even accepted to hospitals. No one wanted to go to a hospital.
Eduardo, great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure being here with you.
Yeah, so I was mentioning before the show, when we looked at you on LinkedIn, it says you're a volunteer firefighter and a volunteer paramedic, and it's one of the things that got you into healthcare. So I thought that's quite a story there to be told. Looking forward to get to know that. How are you doing?
Yeah, I kind of miss it a lot. I miss jumping on the fire truck, and now that I'm married and have 3 kids, my wife doesn't let me that much to get on the fire truck. She tells me I got some responsibility going on.
Absolutely. It's crazy. A lot of people dream about being a firefighter, especially when you're a kid. It's like such a cool job, but very few people end up pursuing it. I got fortunate. One of my closest friends, was training to become a paramedic when I was in university, and I got a little glimpse into the lifestyle, and I'm like, wow, this is, I even considered moving into that area at one time, not going to lie. But firefighting is even cooler. Like, I had a friend who dropped out of university, decided the path wasn't for him, became a firefighter, for Toronto fire division, downtown, and had some crazy stories there. But on the side, built a business that's doing phenomenally well. And now 10 years later, he's retiring from the force, and he has a full functioning business happening. It's a really interesting industry that's built up around firefighting.
You're full of adventures. I remember when I was in college also. I mean, I did volunteer, but I had a lot of stories. So sometimes, I remember a time when I was getting, I had to go to class, and I always had on my car, on my radio. So if I heard an accident or something like that, I would just turn around and then go and help in the accident. And I will come back to school, not all bloody, but, kind of dirty and something like that. And so they'll excuse me for being late for the class, and I'd always have some cool stories, for the whole class to
That's really cool, man.
To share.
Where'd you go to school? Which school?
So I'm originally from Monterrey, Mexico. So I've been living in Mexico for all my life. I studied agricultural business, international agricultural business in Monterrey Tech. But at the same time, I always, I had the opportunity. So I did my paramedic class at Red Cross in Monterrey, and I studied structural firefighter at Texas A&M. So Monterrey is very close to Texas, San Antonio, Texas. So we had the opportunity to be there, and it's always been a volunteer. So I mean, since I was very young, I come from an agricultural family. So my grandfather started a poultry business. So they raised chickens, and then I come from a very traditional family that everyone, you aren't born yet, and you don't have a job there. So my grandfather started the business, and then so his name is Eduardo. So my father is Eduardo. I'm Eduardo, and I put my son Eduardo also. So, but I mean, I started very young. Since I was in high school, we started working in the family business. I mean, we always worked and studied. And that's how I started. But I mean, and that's how my story started, on the business side. I started working with the family business, but just one day I said, you know what, this is, I mean, like I said, you're already not even graduated, and they already tell you you're going to be the CEO of this company because, all the boys, the firstborn boys are the ones that are going to take care of business. And I decided one day, you know what, it's not into me. I mean, I love the business and everything, but I felt something inside me that was, something different that I wanted to do. So it was kind of a mess. I mean, I got in a fight with my dad. I said I don't want to work with him, so I left home. And I remember the only thing I knew at that time, I was 22, was being a paramedic. So there's this place in Veracruz, Mexico, that's Swiftwater Park. So I mean, not park. I mean, there are rapids toward that part of Veracruz. So I remember I called this guy. I knew him and said, you know what, I'm out of a job. What can I do? He said, well, come down here and be a paramedic at our camp. So for that summer of it was 1998, I went down there by bus from Monterrey to Veracruz, like a 12-hour bus ride, and start working as a paramedic. I worked as a paramedic there at camp. No, I had no salary, but I mean, I usually lived from the tips that the other guides had from the guests, and that was the whole summer. It was really cool. I mean, I remember there was this a thing called the Marlboro Adventure Team, where they had like a 2-week long promotion to Marlboro. The cigarette company had a promotion for guys, and they would select them, and they will be rafting or in jeeps and activities. And I was a paramedic there, and my first time I had to get some ambulances and hospitals, because they needed that medical service. So after that, after the job ended, I went back to Monterrey. I started working at a retail supermarket in international business. So I was doing imports and exports, continuing my studies. And at that time, I said, you know what? I want to do something about it. So I remember I went to my grandfather on my mother's side, and I told him, hey, you know what? I got this idea, Grandpa. I want to do this and that, but I need some money. So he lent me some money, and I bought my first 2 ambulances in San Antonio, Texas.
What? Okay.
So yeah. So I drove their ambulances with a friend of mine, with Manolo. I remember we drove them all the way to Monterrey. It was, a 6-8 hour drive, and that's how I started my business in 1999. I just, the only thing I knew, and it's a cool, I have very good memories of it, because I remember I used to, run the ambulance, invoice, charge and sell at the same time, and I had to wash the trucks. And I remember the first times we just had service between 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night. But we also did 24-hour service. So what I did after 7 was that I would get, my phone directed to my cell phone. So if they called the office, my phone will ring. And I remember one time at 4 o'clock in the morning, they just called me. They needed a transfer of a baby from one clinic to another. So I was at my house, so I had to, I got the call at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I went from my house to the office, turned on the ambulance, let it warm, and it was an incubator. So I had to, take out the incubator. Then I had to drive to a nurse's house where I pick her up, and then all the way to the clinic. So, the transfer from the clinic was 10 minutes, but the whole scenario was about 2 hours. And then after we transferred the baby to the hospital, then leave the nurse back at his home, leave the ambulance and go back to sleep and get up again at 7 o'clock in the morning. So, I was young and I was a little bit more full of energy, but yeah, very, very nice memories. From those beginnings. And then, that's what kept me being more in the industry. So after I finished school, I finished my graduation at Monterrey Tech, I decided to, I wanted to live of this. An ambulance service was okay, but I wanted to be more. I always had that idea of wanting to have more and or having a better impact or better, a more impact of what I've been doing to the society. So we decided to enter the medical industry as a whole. So I started, first it was called Lifeline Ambulance. From 1999 to 2002. And then I decided to call it ProMedic. So we changed from being an ambulance company to being a medical industry. So we started doing more of, we opened a clinic, and then we started doing what we do right now. We do occupational health services. So in Mexico, our main business, ProMedic, what we do is we provide occupational health services for companies. So in Mexico, by law, if you have more than 100 employees, you need to have a medical personnel at your campus or present at the company. So we have either from just one nurse to we have a big company
Eduardo, I gotta cut you off here because I
Yeah.
think we're skipping over a lot of
Yeah, I know.
a lot of cool things that you just dropped. So you just started a ambulance business while you were in high school. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost at the beginning of when I was finishing high school.
Finishing high school.
Yeah.
All right. So we got to talk about what it means to start an ambulance business. Because, you're obviously, that's a very, very niche industry to just jump into. So what goes into that? Like, you mentioned your grandfather was able to help you out. Like, how much does an ambulance cost? Like, where do you buy such an ambulance? Like,
Well, it's funny because, so in the States, by law, you can only have an ambulance for 4 years, 4 to 5 years. So you need to renew your ambulances every year. So what I started with used ambulance. Mm-hmm. So it was a whole adventure. Now that you ask it, because we're talking about different states, so different We have to do the whole, importation and exportation. The way I had to export it from the States, make an import from, and I'm talking about, the first time I just drove to the border and I was like, yeah, I want to cross. Well, I mean, where's your paperwork? I mean, I was like, why do I need a paperwork to this? I just want to drive my ambulance. I just want to serve it. And they, I mean, it was a whole experience. I mean, now
So
that
you
mentioned,
need paperwork to bring it into Mexico?
yeah, I mean, you need to go to the regular, regulatory instances and do, customs and stuff like that. But I mean, it's pretty straightforward in that time. But I mean, I didn't also have to, leave the ambulance at the border through Laredo, Texas, and then, go back to Monterrey and do all the paperwork with the invoicing. And I don't know if I remember. I think the first ambulance, I mean, I'm talking about 1999, would have cost me around $11,000 or $14,000, something like that.
Wow.
I mean, it was, I know, nothing at all, nothing at all to what we find right now. And yeah, I mean, and they just sell the ambulance without nothing. I mean, I'm talking about just a vehicle. You need to stock it, and you need, get your defibrillators and monitors and your airway kits, and it depends on what level of care you want to provide. So, and then you got to, get the driver's license and yeah, and with the health ministry, you need to, with the health ministry, from Mexico, you need to demonstrate that you have the capabilities of the licensing in order. I mean, not licensing, but just the capabilities of.
Did you get all this done before getting the first ambulance?
No, I already had him at the border.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I already had them. I was like, well, I didn't know all of this, but I mean, well, let's do it.
Bro, that is so hilarious because I've heard of so many hustles like you jump into. You just, I myself, I randomly got into the scrap metal business at a time when the scrap metal industry got going good. No business being in there, just got a truck and started going at it. But that's one thing, right? So I always wonder about people who just jump into things. I had a great boss who talked about business as like jumping out of a plane and you build a parachute on the way down. But this is amazing because you just started an ambulance company while finishing high school, and you just did it on the fly, right? Okay, so you got the ambulance, you brought it into Mexico, you realize you need all this paperwork and all this stuff done. You get through that. I'm assuming this takes a few months to get done.
Well, I mean, yeah, it took about a month or so. Yeah. But at the same time, it's great to take me memory lane. There's a lot of things, I just had blocked out of my mind, and now I'm thinking about it. It's like, well, because then I had the ambulance, and then I remember someone in my family. Where are you going to park them? I mean, you're not going to park them out of the house.
Yeah.
You need an office. Oh yeah, let me look for an office. So there I am, Monterrey, looking for somewhere to park these big trucks. Because I mean, and we're talking about, it's not, you wouldn't find that regular ambulance type in Mexico. I mean, because there were, the builds that you will find. I mean, not in Mexico right now. We already built ambulance like the American, in compliance stuff like that. But by that time, there were no ambulance. I mean, you would just get a truck and get a gurney and stuff like that. And so these were like the first, well, not the first, but they were like imported ambulance, big trucks with double boxes. And so I mean, a lot of even hospitals were not even ready to have ambulance like this, because the hospitals weren't made with double heights. So sometimes we couldn't even park the ambulance inside. We'll have to park on the side, on the curb, and take the patient to the gurney and get him to the ER or whatnot. Wow. But yeah, I mean, it took a couple of months, and I remember you were saying that you jump in, and then I remember when everything was kind of ready and everything was like, well, and I'll tell you another funny story after this, but I was like, well, okay, how am I going to get clients? So I was already, it was like my first semester in college, and I was just like, you know what? I just got an email, so I jumped in. I mean, I'm talking those very slow emails, not anything like we have right now. So I wrote my dean just one night. So I just wrote him, you know what? He was the dean of the whole system, not only for my campus, but I'm talking the whole Tech of Monterrey in the whole country. I was like, you know what? My name is Eduardo. I'm an average student. I just, bought some ambulances, and I want to, give service because Monterrey Tech has 2 hospitals. So they have like a medical part and the whole engineering stuff like that. So I wrote to him, and I just tell him, you know what, I'm doing this, and I want support. And lo and behold, the next day in the morning, he copied me with everyone that could give me job. I mean, could give me service, that could give service to. So he put me in contact with sports, the director of sports. So everything like American football, soccer that needed ambulance coverage, I was there. And since ever, I mean, now we've been serving more than 20 years to the same. I mean, it was our first client, and we still are giving service to them, to the campus, to the hospitals. And I was like, I didn't mind. I remember, like a couple of years later on, I don't know if you heard of a kart. It's like a NASCAR Formula One. So it was like an indie race that was very popular. So they were running in different parts of the world. So they are going to Monterrey. So it's a big, the first time after Formula One that we had a very big race, IndyCar race, and type of IndyCar. It was called a kart series. But I mean, I'm talking big cars and big scenarios and big everything. We have a big park in Monterrey, so they built a track. And I had a contact there, and I said, "Well, I want to be there. I want to give service." So they gave me the meeting with the director of the race and everything. So I was there, and he said, "Well, okay, everything's fine. So here's what we need. We're gonna need 10 ambulances. We're gonna need a helicopter." And I'm like, "Can you provide it?" Yeah, yeah, like yeah.
Wait,
no worries. No, no worries. I was like, so I mean, I stepped out of that office. I was like, man, how am I gonna get a helicopter? How am I gonna get some ambulances? But I did. I mean, I came here. I came to the meeting. Didn't know what to expect. I mean, I know that we're gonna give ambulance service and stuff, but I didn't know that the requirements. And because the guy at the race knew the guys that knew me, he was like, well, okay, I mean, if he's come recommended, he's gonna make it. And I just had 2 ambulances about that time. I was like, man, what am I gonna do about it? Well, but I mean, and at the end, so we find, I went with some people, some investors. I told them I have here the letter of the contract, and so we bought a couple of ambulances, more ambulances in Texas, and we got them over, and we find I found through some government agency that there were some guys renting a helicopter that was able to ambulance, so we updated and everything, and by the first time it was in 2004, the first kart race in Mexico, and we were I was like dreaming living my dream, man. Because I just love all that system, with the headsets and everyone at the race, and so you got an all access pass, and you're in the pit lane and stuff like that. Just living the dream. It was so cool, and we did that like for 4 years.
Bro, that's one of the wildest stories I've heard.
Yeah, it was. I mean, now I think it's been a whole journey. What you have done, and thankfully, but it's not just. But at the end, it's not just being out there and pushing and taking risks. But I think part of an entrepreneur is, there's a saying a lot that they say, fake it till you make it. But I mean, but you gotta be. I mean, it's a balance. You have to be confident and be trustworthy of what you're doing, because at the end, you can start like that, but then people are going to expect you to get to deliver, and especially in healthcare. I mean, because people in healthcare, life depends on you. I mean, it's not just going out there, but if you know what you're doing and you have the ability, and at the end it comes true. I mean, it's a combination of, I wouldn't say just luck, but because you need effort and you need a team, you need people to trust you, but I mean, you gotta be out there and you gotta get things done.
That's crazy. Did you have to hire like licensed like nurses or paramedics, rather than just drivers? Like, did you have to have them on staff? What was that like?
Yeah. I mean, and I remember I still have one of the original guys. I mean, he's been like for 20 years with us, and I mean, we started from just being a 6-man crew. Right now, we're around 130 people in Mexico to the whole operation after 15 years. So yeah, I mean, but no. Right now, I mean, where are we right now? We have a complete staff, and again, it takes time and it takes team. You cannot do it, all by yourself. And I remember the first times when you're an entrepreneur, and I think it happens, when I was a little bit more young. You want to do everything. You want to be a one-man job, and because it's kind of hard to trust people. So I don't know if it was the case with you, but I mean, at the beginning, I wanted to do everything because I want everything to be perfect, and I want everything to be great, but at the end, and you probably have a team. But if you started doing tasks that they're supposed to do, you doing them, people are just going to be not lazy, but they're going to say, well, the boss is going to do it. Mm-hmm. And at the end, it comes a time where there's too much things, and you get overwhelmed. So one important lessons I had was that, being trustworthy and not just being trustworthy. I mean, getting the right people and getting more intelligent people in front of you to help you overcome and do what they do best, and especially medicine. I was a paramedic and that's it, but sometimes I needed an ICU nurse or a advanced paramedic or something else to do certain things, and actually we did that. I remember in our story, big, it's not, I mean, I remember what time they called me. So a neighboring state had a very bad accident. So a gas truck got stuck in the railroads. So a train just got and crushed it, and there were like about 15 or 20 people that got burned. So we had to do a aerial evacuation. So we rented a couple of planes, and we there were cargo planes, and we just I got a bunch of doctors, ICU doctors, and we did a whole big operation. So moving patients from that state to Monterrey. And I remember we started around 6 o'clock at night, and we ended up about 4 in the morning. We did like 4 or 5 transfers from one state to another, and yeah, it was a whole adventure.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean,
what happened to the business? Did you sell it? Is it still operating?
No. Well, what happened was that as I continued to grow, I've been a lot, in love with entrepreneurship, and one of the things that happens was ProMedic was getting big, and it came a moment when I said, you know what, I became overwhelmed because of all of it, because I think there's a special kind of position for, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a developer, you're a CEO, and I said, well, you know what, at this level of company, I wasn't feeling, not comfortable. I was feeling overwhelmed because, I mean, I'm talking, we already have like 400 people. We started, giving service in other parts of Mexico, and talking about culture, talking about, organization development, business development, planning, budgeting. I mean, we're talking about big things, and I'm more towards, I always wanted to be more in the street. I wanted to be more hustling. I wanted to be no gigs. And so I had to make the decision of stepping down as CEO of that company. Mm-hmm. And for me, I remember talking to my, my other, because one of my co-owners with me is my mom. Mm. So I remember, having a board meeting. I was like, well, but I said, Mom, we're not doing the results that we want to. And she said, oh, but you look beautiful. Don't worry. I was like, no, I don't want that. I want to be pressured. I want to be, accountable for. So what I did, I decided to step down as the CEO of ProMedic, and I did my holding. It's called the Grupo Seara. And what we started doing was getting ancillary businesses from what we saw of the necessity of our clients. So the first business I also started is a medical waste company. So I started, I bought these 2 small trucks that also are very law compliant, because we work, I mean, we take, all the medical waste, the needles, the bloody gauze and stuff like that, because our companies needed to have a law compliance company that could come and pick up that medical waste and have a proper disposal. Mm-hmm. So I started a company, and then I started to get into medtech. So right now, Grupo Seara has 6 companies in the umbrella, all serving in Mexico, until I started Cardiotrack. So now that I, and first I started Cardiotrack just, I mean, not as a big opportunity, but I saw, again, with the clients. So in some developing countries, like in Mexico, if you're going to do a high-risk job, let's say work scaffolding, confined spaces, if you're going to operate heavy machinery, you need to get your blood pressure taken. So imagine we have a client that it's a build steel company that has around 5,000 employees in their site. So we would do anything from 200 to 300 blood pressure measurements per shift. So at 7 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, or 11 o'clock, we would have a lot of people just coming to the medical department and getting their blood pressure taken just manually. Just imagine a nurse or a paramedic, with the normal, BP measurement, not even electric, and just, they will check the blood pressure, write it on a piece of paper, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So if you're okay, you can go to work. If not, so I found there an opportunity to say, you know what, we can automate this process. So what I did is I found a medical device, an approved medical device that would be automatic, that those kiosks, the things, and would give us data. So what we did is we coded the front end, so people would be identified either by their magnetic card or their QR code that we gave to them, and then they will take the blood pressure, and blood pressure would be sent up to the cloud, and we would see if they were okay to work or not. So that's how we started, and that was done in the late 2018, and we started to get a very good traction of it, because we were taking. And not that much to replace the medical personnel, but to get them more time to do more essential things. So that's how we started, and whole 2019 we were very successful. We've been very successful with that company, because we were automating, and then what we started to see was that we started to get a lot of data. And so we started to get the value of the data information. And just by normal observance, we saw that, a lot of people were being rejected. So, I mean, some people were being rejected 3 times a week and 4 times a week. So they wouldn't, not that they will send back to home, but they couldn't do that task that they were, that they had to. So we started to get into look into that. And what happened was that they were having very high blood pressure rates. So we said, well, something's bad. And then we come back and ask them, did you know that you were hypertensive? They were like, no, I didn't know that. So we started to look a little bit into the clinical side. And I don't know if you know that, but hypertension is called the silent killer. Because you don't know that you're hypertensive until you really have that bad measurement. So you can be a little bit over the edges of the readings, but you don't know them, because the only way to really diagnose hypertension is through measurements. And I mean, us that we're, in our early, late 30s, 40s, we don't take that much of the lectures of hypertension as we should, of measurements. So we started to look into how can we, empower, and being from a country that has, lacks a lot of health, public health. I mean, we are the lucky ones that can have, medical insurance, stuff like that. But I'm talking the general population, it takes a toll. I mean, imagine someone having a stroke or a heart attack, the impact it has not only on the person, but on the whole family itself. So we thought about doing something that could really, impact and let them know. So if we're doing law compliance because of the company and we're helping the company, how can we give that back to the, empower the patient and let him know and let him, take care of his readings. And that's how I did another, just impulsive jump. I remember I told my wife, you know what, and we thought, I also wanted to do this as a global company. I wanted to Cardiotrack to be a global company. I always wanted to be, more than just out of Mexico. So ProMedic was very hard, because it's very human resources heavy, and it was not that easy to just open another border. So we saw in Toronto the opportunity, being such pioneer in technology and with all the ecosystem, with Mars in the accelerators, accelerator center, Haltech, there's a lot of things going on. So we decided to look into it and see the opportunity. So, and it was just in pre-pandemic. We started, I remember I came to Toronto in January 2020. It was minus 25, I remember, very good. So I came to Toronto Tech 2.0. I don't know if you heard of that association. Tech 2.0. It's called Tech 2.0. Yeah, Tech 2.0. So they do gatherings and stuff like that. It's very cool. So I came to a gathering, and I remember just being there at the TELUS building. It was like the last gatherings, big gatherings that they had. And I remember that I was just, chatting a lot and talking a lot with, a lot of people. And suddenly
Tech
there
2.0,
was like
when was this?
January 2020.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you were there.
No, I usually go to a lot of events, especially in Toronto tech scene. But Tech 2.0 sounds familiar, but I haven't been there. This is by the TELUS buildings in Scarborough?
No, downtown Toronto.
Downtown
So,
Toronto. Okay.
So they did I don't know if it's they usually do it there, but it's a cool Tech 2.0. It's a nice organization. There are around 2,000 people on Slack channel, and they do a lot of webinars.
Oh, you mean Tech Toronto?
Yeah, Tech Toronto. Yeah, Tech Toronto.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said Tech 2 Toronto.
And, no, it's Tech. Tech 2.
Yeah. Tech Toronto's amazing. Oh, of course.
Oh,
been
yeah,
there multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was there, and I remember there was like an open mic session, and I just I just saw the mic coming through me and say, well, here we go. So I got it, and I just stood up, and I said my name and what we're doing, and I had a very good reaction. So I said, you know what, this is the place to be. And then there's this organization called LATAM Startups.
LATAM,
yeah. So with Miriam Lazarte, I made a contact with her, and I told her, this is what we're doing. We're a tech company. She said, well, you should apply for a boot camp. So we applied for it, and we were going to actually start on March on the boot camp, but couldn't do it because of the dates, and then the whole pandemic started, and so we ended up applying for the boot camp in August. So we got in August virtually. I remember I wanted to come to Toronto. I wanted to take the boot camp in presence, but border closed and everything. So I remember I still I'm not a quitter. I remember I called the embassy in Mexico and told them, what, I got to be there. I got this invitation letter, and we really tried it. But at the end said, what, You can take everything virtually. So if it's not essential, you gotta stay home. So we started in August the whole boot camp, and in September we finished the boot camp and started the soft landing. But this is a funny thing. I've been traveling to Canada with my family for the last 5 or 4 years, but more towards BC. We usually go skiing to Whistler and stuff like that. And one time in 2019 when I was there, we were also exploring the cannabis side, the medical cannabis business. So since it's a big thing and very good to help, especially, we thought of taking that business to Mexico. But Mexico regulation was very far off. I mean, we just been legalized. I mean, we were legalized now I think in the 13th of March, like on the lower house of representatives. It still has to go to the higher house under the president. And right now, Mexico, politically wise, is a mess. But I mean, so on that time, I wanted to do that. So I incorporated a company in BC in 2019. And since everything, the scenario, I didn't use it and just leave it there and stuff. But now I use that company. So when I wanted to start my business here, I used that company to get a work permit. And I just, I applied online, and I remember I was, at home, and our permit came like the final of September. And I told my wife, it's here. So we applied for, the whole family. And I remember the 3rd of November, we got the whole authorization. And by the 14th of November, we were all here. So, I mean, no question that we just pushed everything and very happy. I mean, and right now, we have started, seeing the value proposition and where are we going, and just met some. I have, had the opportunity of met a lot of very interesting people. I mean, I think Canada is a great place, and I think all of us that we're here on the migrant side or working side, there's a lot of, you see that whole ecosystem of how to, relationships and contacts, and how can we help one another, and it's been a very good experience. I mean, for us, it's been just so great.
Mm. Man, that's quite the journey. I gotta admit, it's really cool that now you're in Toronto. You built this medical empire in Toronto, and you came to Toronto. Now, this is a piece that astounds me. You have this infrastructure in Mexico. Did you come here for the talent or the infrastructure? What's about Toronto that brought your tech company here?
Definitely the talent. Definitely the talent. Right now we're just into 2 months of our complete journey, because I was here in November, but obligatory quarantine, and then after the quarantine, it was a complete lockdown, and the whole adventure. There's a lot of adventure. Trying to find a house, and I remember looking for a house, and so we go look for a house, but who are you? Well, I'm Eduardo. You have no credit card here. You have nothing here. You're no one. I was like, yeah, but in Mexico, I don't care. You're no one. Not my house.
Yeah.
I know but it's a very enriching, because whenever I had the opportunity of going through that process, and right now I went today to get my driver's license, and the whole thing, I was like, how are you gonna give me a G1? I've been driving 20 years. And I cannot drive from. So but that whole thing, and it's very good, but yeah, basically because of the talent here. I see a lot of talent and in the data space, a lot of data opportunity, data scientists, and we just started with Haltech and CheckPlace our AI strategy. So we finished our AI strategy for a company, because right now in Cardiotrack, so just to let you know of the big data we have, we're taking around 3,000 blood pressure measurements per day. So we have more than 300,000 measurements and more than 20,000 patients engaged in continuous monitoring. We just also added weight and scale. We added also temperature. So now the thing that we want to do is, what do we do with that data? So our idea to came to Toronto is that, and not California, but California is so big and everything, but what I loved about Toronto is that, you get the both of the worlds. You got talent, you got a lot of big universities, a lot of big accelerator centers, a very nice country where two things can combine. So that's what I'm looking for, and most, just going to a point back, is talent, having the opportunity of talent. There are a lot of investments, a lot of the investors and founders and fundings. It's very different than the States, Here, there's a lot of things that you can, talk a little bit more. We had a conversation this morning with I wouldn't say investing like that, but more of a mentor. We had a very big conversation of opportunities and different venues, everyone's just so open to hear you and give you two pieces of advice. That's so incredible.
Yeah, man. Welcome. Well, welcome to Toronto. I'm glad to have you. Um,
We're very happy.
I love good entrepreneurial stories, and you're definitely one of the top ones I've heard because that's a real hustle and grind. I love people who just jump and into things and just do it, and just figure things out on the way. As I mentioned before, like I had a few I had the pleasure of working in Toronto with a few people who have built companies like this. One of the things I love about oh, we got a little bad connection there. Yeah, one of the things I appreciate about my work history, right, is that I've been able to work with small companies that are built, small to medium-sized businesses that were built by entrepreneurs who took great leaps, and just being around them when you're at a young age and seeing how they are, like it really gives you the kind of like almost a first-hand glimpse into that kind of mindset. Right, but it's a whole nother thing when you're in the hot seat, right? When it's all up to you, you make this big swing, you make this big risk, you jump off this big the cliff, and you're trying to build this thing on the way down, and you're getting up and running. So, kudos to you. That's always a great accomplishment. But now that you're in tech, what are the challenges you're seeing that are different than the other companies? Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, and you see, one of the things, doing that leap, because I had the opportunity of just I had, I built this organization, and a lot of very smart people are being the CEOs of the different companies are already built, and I had the opportunity just, to step down, and so I did a little bit of investment angel. I invested in some companies one of them, got into YC, Y Combinator, and it was in 2020. I mean, they did very good. They're still working. It's a digital pharmacy, Vitao, they're in Mexico, like a pill pack factory.
Wow.
And so, I mean, they did very good. But I had the opportunity to just, step down. But I said, no, I'm not. So I decided, no, I talked with my board and with some of the other directors. And I told them, you know what? I want to be in the game again. They're like, well, I mean, I don't care. So I decided to be CEO of a company. And then again, you said, I'm the only one here in Toronto of the whole team. And I'm doing everything. I'm trying out the medical devices. And actually, we started a demo with a company for the thermometer. So I went and I assembled the whole thing. So I got some things in from Mexico, and I'm there, doing with the Raspberry Pi. I'm not a technician guy, but looking at YouTube videos and assembling the Raspberry Pi and and the device, but it's a whole experience. So I would say being in tech really, and it all depends on how much you really want things. So I mean, I'm in my 44, so I mean, I would be other generation, but I've never left myself down of being up to date in things. And I love to talk to guys like yourself or other guys whenever I have the opportunity. Our CTO is 30, and actually he was a doctor, a medicine doctor, but he left medicine to be a coder. So he self-taught himself to be a coder. So I think I get into that type of ecosystem for the same. And I would say it's very fascinating. It's very fast. You really got to be up to date about everything because tech is running so fast. So I mean, before I came here, AI was like these big machines and this big blurry thing, and you didn't know where to even start. And now, as you start to progress and be more into the market, you really understand the potential of things and how can tech impact. And for me, beyond the healthcare space, and I think pandemic showed us. I love this kind of graph that population is like this. Population is always like this, but medical service is like this. So there was going to come a gap someday in time where there are not going to be enough doctors to treat all those people. And it just happened with COVID. All the hospital systems in the world got overwhelmed. I mean, there were too much sick people. And not even, and right now I shared in LinkedIn a paper that she's called Rachel she's from a place in London, where we're talking about the backlog of chronic diseases. I mean, all the people that were sick of hypertension, diabetes, cancer, they weren't even accepted to hospitals. No one wanted to go to a hospital. So I mean, we are going to be, in front of some days are going to be hard because we need to really expand our opportunities. So that's why I love tech and that's why I love medicine, because I think there's a combination to really be able to serve even faster and better. We're always going to need the doctor. Doctors always going to need to. I don't think AI will replace doctors. I don't think AI will replace nurses. I think AI or machine learning or tech in a whole is going to help doctors to make better decisions faster. Because right now, all the decisions have to come to the doctor himself. They need to look at all the stats and say, well, look at all the paperwork and say, well, you know what, Eduardo really needs surgery now, or he doesn't. But that takes a lot of time, and how I was, talking again in the morning with a family doctor sees around 30 to 40 patients a day. And they take around 20 minutes hearing, the story, and then have to, take paperwork, and that takes a lot of time. So I think there are several key places where tech really can impact.
Yeah, Eduardo, I'm not sure if you're getting camera issues, but I think we got a little bit of a low connection issue. Not sure what's going on here. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm here. I see you good.
Okay, I can hear you clearly. The tool we're using, Riverside, it allows us to. It'll still keep recording on your end, and it'll send me the clip. Right. Okay. So we'll just keep continuing. It should fix itself soon. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a fascinating story. If you can continue.
Yeah. So for me, the importance of tech, as you were asking, so tech is really a very important key. So I mean, Toronto has that all. I mean, has a lot of people, very intelligent people, and very good universities that are really pushing, students to go out there and find that specific field. So and it's incredible. I mean, right now, what we would be aiming for is to get more of those data scientists and clinical advisors. We're trying to work with some of universities to find our value proposition and a proof of concept about detecting hypertension through the massive scanning. So a lot of big opportunities.
Interesting. That's really cool. So I'm actually more concerned about launching a tech company, right? Like, are you? What about yourself? Like, did you ever feel out of place launching a tech company? Like, you don't know code, or you don't know what's actually going on, or was there a learning curve for you to understand things?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not even savvy on coding. I mean, I know the basics, and I try to get up to date to everything. But I wouldn't say that there's a limit, or I mean, you set the limits. I mean, for me, like talking about my experience, I didn't have to be a coder or a data scientist or an engineer to get to know. I mean, I like to read, not that much read, but I like to get up to date and be surrounded by the people. So I would say, you know what? I have the idea. I have this great idea, but let me surround me by people that are really experts in that. And I mean, there was going to be, you can always ask yourself, is this the right thing? Do I need to be in this specific field? But I think I've proven myself, not only myself, but the rest of, everyone out there, that you don't have to be a coder in order to code. You don't have to be a doctor to have a clinic. You don't have to be, I think there are more key factors involved. But you got to respect, you're not going to fly a plane if you're not a pilot, but you can run something like that. It's the same. If there's like the will to really want to do things, you can do it. You should have that, be humble enough to really recognize what are your limits and be the kind of leader that would get people that really know to complement you. I always find leadership very much like, in a big orchestra, you have the conductor. So, you can have the best violin artist right by you, but if the conductor doesn't start, he's not even going to start his show. So I think that's one of the key points of leadership. Being a good conductor and having the best crew available or the best people and try to work it together. And that things, for me, that's how things get done.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, right? When you're like grinding and building up and you're trying to do all these different things, right? What does that look like to you when you're trying to balance life and work, right? How do you keep yourself progressing in both atmospheres?
Well, it's hard. And sometimes you gotta, I think, and for me now, especially like I was telling you, I have 3 kids. They're 11, 9, and 6. So they're pretty much demanding. Right now they're demanding. And if you don't look into that, I think entrepreneurship life, when you're an entrepreneur, you work all day. You don't care if it's Monday, Saturday, Sunday, you're always browsing, you're always answering emails, you always want to be out there. But I think it comes, and now that I started again, this whole venture of being, in front of CEO, because I was just behind the lines and just looking at everything and looking at opportunities. But now that I'm CEO, I got to think, from I remember I'm here now in Toronto, I got to pay my taxes. And everything was done by the accounting service in Mexico. But here, since I'm alone, I got to do my accounting, and I do, got to pay my taxes, and I do my tax reports and everything. So, but it's fun. But you really have to manage that, and there's time for everything. I think as you start to find a team, and you start to find the right time, it's like they say, it doesn't matter if you work from 7 to 7. I mean, you can work from 7 to 3, but if you're efficient in what you do, if you really do the things that you're supposed to do, things get by. I mean, because you can lose track a lot of time. And you know what I've learned a lot in this, new venture, I would say, for me, a new beginning, because for me it's like a new beginning. It's to really take into consideration what really matters, because sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you want to do everything, and you want to try everything, and you want to, mess up everything. And that's okay, and that's something that I think has to be in every part of your life, and in every part of your career life. But also ask yourself, should I really be just doing all this, or should I just focus my energy in what really things that matter, and surround yourself by talented people. They don't have to be, your employees. They can be mentors, advisors, friends. But there's a really knowledge out there that can help you, cut corners and try to get faster towards where you're going.
Yeah, that's always interesting, man. Like, so balancing life and work, right? Like, now that you're more, you have family, and you've been around the block a little bit. Like, what's your schedule look like? How do you maintain your days?
Well, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of the crazy kind, because I sleep. Thankfully I'm healthy. I do my exercise. I try to do my exercise. So I get up at around 5 in the morning. I try to do some bicycle spinning, some push-ups and stuff like that. And then I try to get up with some emails, and I try to get some meetings with the team, and just get some work done. I would say by now, I mean, I'm trying to be in here with my family alone. I mean, because my family also, since we had a big cluster of things in Monterrey and everyone was so busy, I try to spend more time with them. And so I try to get my mornings very busy, all the way, let's say from 7 o'clock all the way up to 3 or 4. And then I would come back and try to spend the afternoon here at the kids. But then again, it kind of the conflict, because I'm starting to look at looking at a global company. So not just operation in Mexico. Probably we're going to be looking at operations in Colombia, in Peru, where there, hypertension and cardiovascular disease is everywhere in the world. We're just having a call in the morning about, they told me, well, just look into Africa, Rwanda, Ghana. They're countries that are coming out of very harsh times, and they're building and looking to rebuild. I was like, man, now I gotta go to Africa. I mean, but thankfully, again, I have a very nice, family. My wife supports me a lot, and my whole team. I would say again, it all depends on the trust that you deposit to the teams, and once you do that, once you trust, and once you give them power, a lot of things could go on your way easily.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Let me tell you this. It's hard. North American market is hard. I mean, it's a very mature market. We have learned a lot about privacy issues, how everything is very clear about your things and your privacy before anything else. So that's been one of the more interesting challenges, and that sets a very high bar for us in order to come up to that, because I mean, we are law compliance in where we operate and everything, but it's very different, regulations here in North America, especially in Canada versus Mexico or developing countries. So it's it's entering a mature market has its interesting points.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's, I'm saying amazing because, like, I think you've outlined some really interesting things, because there's very few people that came through the podcast, even though they're in global markets, talk about the particularities of the global market, because they're generally, from here. They're working out of the location that they're generally from, right? You have now come to Canada, come to Toronto, and now you're launching something back in the LATAM regions, right? So I think this is a really interesting way you're seeing the lens from a North American's perspective, but having lived, back home. So I would love to ask you this more questions, right? Like, what is is there restrictions or is there problem sets of running issues, like running businesses, back home versus here, like in the LATAM areas versus the North American areas, like the South versus North?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, but I think being being headquartered, that's our goal. Being headquarters in Canada and being servicing LATAM really gives you an advantage because so in LATAM we have a very big corporations, very big international corporations. Since LATAM has more as a manufacturing set of skills, so a lot of the big companies go and set factories there, and not only in Mexico, but I mean in all parts of the world. So being law compliant with an international in an international place sets the bar different, and they see how you apply different. So that's helped us being leveraged because regulations here are going to be much higher rather than there. So that helps us set the bar for ourselves to be even better of what we're doing in some other places. And that the only thing that only happens is if we have competition, the competition only has to get better. So the whole ecosystem gets benefited because of that. I mean, it's more expensive, to be honest. I mean, we have to comply with PIPIDA and HIPAA compliant and all of that things that really, you have to spend a lot of money and lawyers and, to go all that way up. But that's going to reassure your clients anywhere in the world that you're doing good, that you're doing better. Your bar is different than the other. So, and that takes a good advantage.
Man, that's really interesting because generally we hear of companies trying to do the opposite, right? They're trying to go to places of less regulation, less restrictions, more favorable tax codes, right? Trying to go to places of least resistance because, they can operate better. But you are going against the grain, upwards, right? Where places are things are much more premium to feed off of that premium status that it gives, right? The idea that you're at a different threshold. Can you talk about the regulatory structure in LATAM, like that's missing compared to North America? Like what's developing there? What's coming up? Are they using the similar frameworks that makes it easier for us to do business to technology? Is there restrictions coming?
Oh yeah, I mean we are very, like I would say, saying in diapers. I mean we are very in diapers in that. I mean, but you start to see trends, and you start to see trends especially because of companies like ours that are coming into that ecosystem with different level of compliances. But I mean, it's just very easy. I mean, in Mexico, so here you're in Mexico, you are the owner of your information, but you need to. So like by a regulatory thing, the information can be owned by the company. So if you don't want your information to be operated by the company, you need to ask for it not to be. So it's the other way around. I mean, here they have to ask your permission in order to they have to do it the other way around. So, but I mean, there's some good things and there's some bad things. I mean, in healthcare, what we want to do is take that opportunity and advantage, because once we have your medical information, we can provide you. But the thing is that we want to give you the opportunity. So I mean, yeah, I mean, things are changing. I mean, but then again, politics doesn't help a lot. I mean, we're changing into a whole different system of politics. I mean, we've been the last 60 years running, I don't know if it's good or bad, but a different system. Now we're starting a populism system in Mexico that's really been changing a whole thing. So imagine if we were trying to, get a little bit better. Now we're like, whoa, this is, they're shutting down things and opening things. And, they, especially like for medical devices, after it was very hard to get a medical device approved, now it's very simple. So, I mean, that's a good thing. But we want to be sure that, the medical devices are going to comply. I mean, you have to comply with someone else. I mean, I remember last year or the years before, if a medical device was already FDA approved, it was very easy to have it approved by the Mexican authorities. Now they don't even ask that. So, I mean, but at the end, as an entrepreneur, you got to be resilient to whatever comes. And I think at the end, especially for LATAM, it's all in you and your conviction. I mean, you can either do it any way you want to do it, or you want to do it the right way, or the best way. So it's kind of sad, but it is. I mean, there are a lot of companies that just do it because they want to do it. But I think at the end that, I can say it out loud. I've been 20 years in service, and I'm here. There's nothing that, because I've done things the right way. Probably it's not the fastest way, but it's the right way. And that's, something that strives, and that's more towards how you like to do things and how you want to go out in time of how you've been doing. So for us, being here really helps us to higher the threshold of what we're looking for. I mean, even getting more demanding, it'll cost more for sure, but I'm pretty sure that at the long run will have a better impact on what we're doing for a whole people.
Wow, Eduardo, that's such a refreshing look into things. one part of entrepreneurship is you're doing hard things, and when you're doing hard things, you look for paths of least resistance. I can appreciate someone who takes the time to go uphill, even at a higher pace. Just because it's the right way to do it. So kudos to you, kudos to your team. Wish you guys the best. I would love to have you back here in a recurring theme. We love inviting guests that come every 6 months and give us updates on what they're working on and how things are going. I would love to have you back on again. Right, so we'll reach out about that. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate for your space. I really congratulate you. I mean, that's something that sometimes entrepreneurs need. Having a space to talk about and going down memory lane. And for sure, I mean, this new type of technology helps. If just someone at the end has a good tip from what we're saying, discussing, that makes a whole difference.
Perfect. Appreciate it, Eduardo. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. It'll be a pleasure coming back.
Absolutely. Stick around for a few minutes. We'll do a quick debrief. But for everyone who tuned in, thank you.
Thank you.